Father, we worship you this morning in on bended knee as we thank you for the day, thank you for springtime, and thank you for life as it comes about all around us. But our hearts are so heavy for the people of Ukraine, for the refugees, for the pictures that tear our hearts apart as we watch on television the children, the mothers, the grandmothers, and the soldiers, the men who are, it's a whole generation of families that are just torn apart. We know everything is in your hands, and we ask that you preside over the negotiations that are being attempted again today. Bless those people and continue to give them the courage to fight, and may the rest of Europe and the United States be supportive in more than just words. This morning we have praise for the new life of nephews and little Caroline, or big Caroline, and we thank you for that. We also are grateful that Robert has gotten home from Florida and is on the road to recovery. It will be some time, but at least he is recovering. We thank you for the recovery of Margie and Olin from their COVID, and we're glad to see Margie back here again with us. We have a lot of requests for people who are very ill and have much need for your protection, and you're overseeing the physicians who are performing surgeries. Kelly is going to have double surgery, and my goodness, we ask that the doctor's hands are carefully constructing what needs to occur for her, and that the pain be as minimal as possible. Be with her. Give her peace and comfort that you are with her. We ask that you also be with Rhonda and Tommy and Sandy, who's experiencing real depression with her illnesses. These people are needing your presence in their lives on a daily basis, on an hourly basis, and we ask that you surround them with your love. Also with Rita's dad, we ask that he not be dissuaded from a little different diet than what he's used to after 90 some years, but that he is willing to take on the challenge. And Rita's a good cook, so I know that he will have some options. And we also ask, Father, for your intervention with family relationships that have been strained over the past 2 years with COVID and with the economy being so severely inflated. I mean, we've got so many problems, yet we know that you know the outcome of everything. But with the relationships of families, please, Lord, intervene and grant some peace, and may people talk to one another without arguing, without fighting, but talk and turn to you and pray. And we ask all these things as we come this morning to listen to Dr. Wilkinson talk about tests of our faith, and we certainly have those. And we ask that you be with us. In your Son's holy name we pray. Amen. Well, you knew I would call for review. Okay. You remember? What are the 5 things at the bottom?
I knew response was one.
Response is one, yeah.
Reality, responsibility, results, and reward.
I like
Okay.
the last one.
You like the last one. Well, you've answered the first question, but what about the question on page 8 about, did you write any notes to yourself about how you were going to respond in your next test of faith? And did anybody have any real tests of faith this past week? I was tested when the Tar Heels were playing the Cinderella game. But we prevailed. No, seriously, has anybody had any big tests or little tests of faith this past week? Nothing. Yes? Did you have one?
Yeah. It's very scary to see your child sick, and there's not a thing you can do. It's not the natural order of things. So, but Olin and I have both had to say, we give her to God and we pray that she's all right.
That's what Sue Williams said when she stopped over, that she doesn't know what to do with her sister. She's done everything she can. And she says, I just cried and prayed to God the other day. She says, I give her to you. There's nothing we can do.
It's this endurance that we go through on the chart, I mean, it's test, and today we're going to be talking about the different patterns of tests of faith. And you may discover that you're in one pattern today and you were in a different pattern a week ago. And he's really good at describing. It's going to be very relatable to what we're all going through. So let's watch the video. It's not a 2 hours.
Welcome back to the Testing of Your Faith. We're on session number 2, Patterns of Tests of Faith. We're going to share with you the 5 major patterns of the trials that God sends your direction. Do you know which pattern you're in today, or the one you were in last year, or the one that your best friend is in and has no idea? This is going to be eye-opening. But before we go over and go to our workbook and the screen, I want to look at last session we had together. Session 1, the purpose of tests of faith. And this is our chart that we talked about. First of all, we had the response of joy and rejoice about the trials, which are really the test of your faith. That's the reality we're in. We're in one of those trials right now. And the shocking part of it is the exact opposite of what we expect. God wants us to have joy and rejoicing because we know something about this reality. We know that we have a reward coming if we endure the test of faith. And our responsibility is this red arrow. We are to endure. Let patience, let endurance have its perfect work so that you can be transformed, become like Christ. And the result is that God will transform you to be perfect as He is perfect, step by step by step. And the last one, the reward, earthly, that you'll be perfect, mature, lacking nothing, and heavenly, that you will receive from Christ at His coming. Just think about this. God's going to affirm you personally, publicly, with honor, praise, and glory. This is not honor, praise, and glory to Christ. This is Christ giving you honor, praise, and glory because of the test of faith that you endured and become like him. So let's begin back over here in session number 2. One of the goals we have in this course is that you would have a panorama of your entire life and how it's working from the Bible's point of view. And our goal is that you would kind of be comfortable with the words that we're teaching you. You know, on that session number 1, we taught you about your response when you're in the reality of a trial. And it's my responsibility to endure and not end the trial too soon so that it'll finish its perfect work. So I'll have the result that my life will become more and more like Christ, and that I'll get the rewards that are promised. Got those 5 words? Come on, they're not hard. Review them throughout the week before we come back for the next session. Well, what we're going to do in this particular session is something that's very, very helpful. It's to give you a vocabulary. You know, instead of, that thing, that whatamajig over there, I don't know what you call it, just the one, we don't know what to call something. And if you don't know what to call it, you really don't have a clear grasp of it. What does a test of faith look like? What are the different types of tests of faith? If I gave you, I came over with one of the cameras and a microphone, I said, hi, I'm from NBC over here, and I'd like to ask you, what are the different types of trials that you have in your life? What would you do? Do you have any idea in your mind? Well, you will at the end of this session, I promise to you, but I want to give you a vocabulary. That is a way to talk about something, because if not, you're not going to be able to make common sense out of it. I want you to really know on the 4th level of knowing. There's 4 levels of knowing. Level number 1 is unconscious, incompetent. You don't know that you don't know. Other people may, but you don't know that you don't know. The 2nd level is conscious, incompetent. You know that you don't know. You know that you don't know. Hopefully that's how you're feeling about the patterns. You're consciously incompetent. You don't know. It's all right to be incompetent if you don't know something. Level number 3 is unconsciously competent. You're just good at something, and somebody says to you, man, look at what you just did. How did you do that? No, I don't know. It just kind of comes natural. But what's your secret? I don't know. It just kind of comes naturally to me. That's unconscious competent. But the 4th level is what we all want, which is consciously competent. You know, and you're competent about it. And so what we're going to do in this session is help you become consciously competent so that when you're in a trial, you know which of the 5 patterns are you in. How did we find these 5 patterns? How did I find them? Not in a book, not in a course somewhere. I found it in this thing called the Bible. And reading from one side to the other side, studying every single test of faith I could find, and then began to analyze them. Is there any patterns in these tests? And I found there sure are. There's not 10 that I couldn't find 10. In fact, I found 5 primary patterns that you will find yourself in. And in trying to find out what's the average pattern for the average audience, I asked a couple audiences. I want you to vote. Is it pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the one that's happening most in your life right now? And pattern 4 was number 1, and pattern 5 was number 2. So when we get to these, I want you to be thinking to yourself, which one am I? What do I want you to be able to do at the end of this session? I want you to be able to say, here are the 5 patterns. Pattern 1, pattern 2, pattern 3, pattern 4, and name them to me. And have a little picture of them in your mind, just like for session 1. You know, it is response, reality, responsibility, result, and reward. And pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And session number 3's got some significant insights and a vocabulary for you to use so you understand what's taking place. So let's go back up here and take a look at some scripture for a moment. In the introduction, the components, just a little background before we get to the patterns, the components of the test of faith. And you learned this in session number 1. So what exactly is session 2 on here? Every session we're going to teach you fits on this chart somewhere. We're going to work our way this way. Right now we're on the trials. And we're going to give you 5 patterns. In session number 3, Take a look over here for a minute. Session number 3, the stages in a test failure. Test failures just don't happen. They happen in stages. If we're going to take a look at this period of enduring and say, as time goes on, you start failing, what are the stages you're going to go through before you totally fail? That's session number 3. Session 4 is the exact opposite. How do you have test success? That's up here. So every single session going to take you to you really are a master, and you've been initiated into the mysteries that Jesus Christ wants you to know. Now, this is a passage we talked about last time, but I want to show you something. The test of faith. In this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while, if need be, you've been grieved by various trials. So number 1, look at this. A little while. It's temporary. If need be. If you need it. From whose point of view? Maybe not from yours or mine, but from his point of view. It's temporary and it's necessary. You've been grieved by various trials, all kinds of them. Number 3, variety. How do we feel when we're going through one of these temporary, necessary, and variety trials? We feel grieved. I don't want to lessen this and to be promoting an idea that is not biblical. Trials never get to be untrials. They're trials, they're meant to be. That's why we must endure until they've finished their work. So when you think about this, these are the tests of faith characteristics. The tests of faith characteristics. Next in your notebook, these are the tests of faith variables. That is, this is going to show you how many different ways God can arrange to send you a trial. One different than anyone you've ever had, and the next one will be different than you've ever had. And he has so many different variables he can choose. For instance, in your workbook, I hope you have your testing of your faith workbook, or you're using the Year 3 Superbook, and you can be following right in your workbook the patterns of faith right there as we process through this and take your notes and work on your discussion questions. So what are the variables? I just listed some for 2.1. That is a timing of the test of faith. Is it going to be tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Is it going to be the next day? It's infinite. 2.2, where? What's the location of a test of faith? Is it going to be at your house? Is it going to be work? Is it going to be on the gas station? Where is it going to be? Number 3 is who. Who's going to be involved in your test of faith? Is it your boss? Is it your spouse? Is it your child? Is it your neighbor? Is it a total stranger? Is it your pastor? Who's going to be the people that's involved in your test of faith? Number 4, what? What are the categories involved in the test of faith, such as physical health, emotional distress, financial condition, your marriage, your family, job and work situation, major failure? It can be all kinds of situations. Number 5, how much? That is, how long will your test last? How severe, how difficult will it be? How many parts of it are there going to be involved for you? The complexity of the test. 2.6, why? Don't lose track of this. The transformation of your life to be more perfect, complete, lacking nothing, and to reward you with praise, honor, and glory at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And number 7, how? That is, which of the 5 patterns is God using at this time in your life? Now, before I go and give these patterns to you, can we just stop for a minute and get a little bit personal? That is, when most people think about a trial, they evaluate this as so difficult And what comes out of it is this big, it's little. Therefore, we say words like, it's just not worth it. Because when we compare something. So one thing that I want you to be able to do is to get free, to be able to be joyful and rejoicing about a test of faith when you enter it. And it has everything to do with your perspective about this cost to benefit. What did it cost me? And what did I get from it? The comparison of your trial and your reward. So let's take a look at a very helpful passage here for you. The Spirit, Holy Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God, and joint heirs with Christ, if indeed we suffer with him, that we may be glorified together with him. Suffer, glorified. For I consider, now here's the comparison, that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared. Whoa, with what? The glory that should be revealed. This is future. So he is comparing what's the cost to you and what's the benefit to you. And he says, it's so vast, that is, the benefit to you is so big, the cost is so small in comparison to the benefit, it's not worthy to be compared. It's this. But what's our thinking? What's our typical reaction to this whole issue? It's this, that we believe the cost is this big, but the benefit is down here. Therefore, we don't want to do it. Do you understand how it all fits together? Come on now, think about this. If your perspective is the opposite of what this passage is saying, which is the benefit is so big, so massive, it's not even worthy to compare to the cost that God expects from you to get the benefit. If that's your mindset, that's part of the initiation process, where you actually come to believe the truth of this. That is, the cost is really small compared to the eternal glory. What? Glory. Yes. Compared with the glory, are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be, future tense, hold on to this, revealed in us. Wait a minute. I'm right here. There's glory, which is brilliance, glory of God. That's his bright light. Wait, now this can't be true. It's revealed in us? You mean there's, wait. You're not telling me I'm going to become more glorious, more like God? What does it say? It's not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be in the future revealed in us. This is a revealing, showing something we didn't know is existing. Now, I want to just back away a little bit. You've never seen me. No, I haven't seen you either. Why not? Because I live in this house called my body, and you live in your house, but I'm not my house. When I die, what happens to this house? It goes in the grave. Now, I don't go in the grave. My house goes in the grave. And I go to heaven to be with Christ and get a new house called a resurrected body. So I've never seen you. You've never seen me. You've not seen my essence. You've not seen, the Greek word is my morphe, my real person. It's veiled with my flesh. So this passage is saying, whoa. The glory which shall be revealed in us, not in our body, but in the real person. Now, let me see if I can't prove that to you just a little bit as we get into this. What am I trying to demonstrate here? That you have to have levels of initiation. This is part of the initiation. Your understanding. I'm informing you from the text that the values that comes from your test is so far more priceless to you and to God that you'll almost look down. Is that all it cost me? Is that all it cost me? You know, the last time I taught this, I decided to try and help the people understand this. And I told them that on the way over to the class that Wednesday night, I stopped at a huge technology store called Best Buys in America. And the guy said to me on the way out, he said, listen, we've had so many problems with this COVID that people haven't been coming in the store, and we have an inventory that's just too high. And we've decided to basically put things on ridiculous sale, but we're not publicizing it. We're not telling anybody it. We're just letting people know in the store. I said, what are you talking about? He said, tonight at 8 o'clock, 8 to 9 only, you can buy an iPhone, which costs around $1,000, for $299. A brand new one, the latest model for $299. And you can get a brand new Macintosh Pro computer, which is usually like $2,000, for $600. And I said to the people, you know, we'll end class exactly at 7:30, so you can get over and buy for your kids, your grandkids, yourself. How many of you are going to go do this? And almost everybody raised their hand. Why? Because it's so little cost and such a big benefit that everybody wanted to do it. Oh, that's what this passage is saying. It's not even worthy to be compared. It's such a great deal because it's God, the most generous person in the universe, who made the deal. And he's offering you for a little bit of this for something that's eternal. So let me see if I can't show you this. Daniel chapter 12. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth, that's the people who have died, shall awake, some of them who do to everlasting life, and some to shame and everlasting contempt. Now, look at this. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, like the skies. And those who turn many to righteousness shall shine, come on now, like the stars. For how long? How long do I get a benefit? When does the benefit run out? Answer, forever and ever. What is that shining? That's the glory that's being revealed in you because of who you became and what you did. That's session 6 and 7 and 8. That's deep stuff. How do you maximize your glory forever? Because everybody's going to want to have that level of glory, and not everybody's going to. Now, does this, happen with a snap of the finger, or does it happen over time? Paul says this, but we all, with unveiled face, beholding as in a mirror the glory of the Lord, are being transformed, changed. That's the word morphe, your essence. Your essence is being transformed, not your body, are being transformed into the same image. The same image as whom? Of Christ. From glory to glory, just as by the Spirit of the Lord. What is it saying? We're being transformed into the same image, which is the glory of Christ, from glory to glory. From this amount of glory to this amount, to this amount, to this amount. Just think about this. And the way that this takes place in many situations is through those difficult tests of faith that we want to throw everything up. We want to, say, I want to, quit. I don't want to. But if we saw it from God's point of view and the eternal point of view, would we be doing this? We'd be saying, I quit. We'd be saying, no, more, because look at what I'm getting. That's a person who has been initiated. Are you getting initiated? Am I giving you the information from the Bible in such a way that it's really making it clear in your mind? I've thought about my life backwards. Instead of running away for the hard times, I'm going to rejoice and go to them because I believe the cost to the benefit is astonishing, and I don't want to miss it. The people who have rejoice. They do. Can you cope with this? Can you cope with this? You may not be ready for this. This is level number 1, which is sessions 1 and 2. Next week, next session 3 and 4, we're going to some intermediate levels. You gotta grab this. This is the baby food to get going to where we want to take you. Let me see if I can't summarize what we've been saying on our little chart, the cost to benefit comparison. On the left, we have our temporal perspective of how we view things. And the right, it's God's eternal perspective. On the left, we have the cost to me, and we look this way down. This is the benefit to me. This is how the vast majority of all believers think about the trials of their life. And we say, it's not what? What do we say to each other? Sure, it's not worth it. But the flip side of the eternal point of view shall shine like the stars with glory forever and ever. Oh man, are you going to wish that this was you if you don't pay the price now? And God's eternal point of view is, this is the cost to you now, and this is the benefit that I'm going to give to you. But if I was really honest with you, this chart of the benefit will go right through the roof, up about 1,000 feet, 1,000 meters. It's a shocking comparison. That's why Paul said, it's just not worth it to compare. You can't compare it. The benefit is so far, and the cost is so low, it's not even a bother to think about. Therefore, can you stop the old way? Because what I'm reading from the scripture is part of the initiation for you. If you stay in the old mindset, the old paradigm of how you think about your life and trials and difficulties and suffering, you'll never go into any level of an initiation that will bring about a revolution in your life that you will love. You will love it, not only now, but forever. You gotta let go of the old lie. The old lie is, it's not worth it. The new truth is, it's definitely worth it. The people who get here are the same people who count it all joy when this happens and who rejoice when this happens. Can you put it together? They know the truth that 90-something% of all the believers think the opposite. You got to grab this. Let me go over here to these. Take a look at this back here. These first two are the elementary issues we're dealing with. The next two sessions, the stages in the test failure, this is intermediate. This is going to be much more challenging than this. This is just, hello, let's begin to get the big idea. And the steps for test success are going to give you tools that you've never used probably before in your life. So you don't fail the test anymore, that you let it perfect you and that the test finishes. You got to understand, you got to buy into the biblical teaching. It's been there all along, but we just haven't perhaps ever got it clear in our own mind. All right, let's move on. The patterns of tests of faith. Okay. I've picked out very clear biblical passages about these 5 patterns and also given them a name and expressed how we feel about them and then giving you a little animation and a sound that goes with them about a way for you to remember it. This is how I remember it. Let's take a look at this passage. So Sarah said to Abraham, so this is Sarah and Abraham, "See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children." Remember what God did? He promised Abraham and Sarah they would have as many children as the stars in heaven, sand of the sea. They didn't have any children. And by the time she's saying this, it's Abraham is 86 years old. Wait. Is she overstating this? Is she overstating this? See now, the Lord has restrained me from bearing children. Is that true? Or was it just something physical? Or was it Satan? Or was it God? Oh my goodness, it's God. It's called a test. God made a promise to Abraham and Sarah, and they kept trying to have children for weeks, months, year after year after year after year after year. Oh man, after year after year. Yeah, but that's the whole point, isn't it? God wouldn't let them have kids, and he's the one who promised it to them. Was God withholding this? Yes, absolutely. You'll find out he was the one who did this. Why? To test their faith in his promise when everything looks like his promise isn't going to work. Does God ever do that to you, my friend? What does it feel like when this thing goes on and on and on and on? This is called the prolonged marathon. That's pattern number one. A marathon is a race that, oh man, I used to run a lot in high school and college. And you run, let's say, a marathon, you think it's never going to end. It goes on and on and on. And our definition is it's a long-lasting, difficult, or painful situation. But the key concept is it's long-lasting. It seems to never end. So, normal response is it's too long. It's too long. This will never end. That's how you feel. It goes on and on and on, and it goes on. Watch this now. You're kind of thinking, it'll end by here. I'm sure, next week. And then it goes on some more and say, well, I think it's going to end. It's going to end pretty soon. And it doesn't. And I thought by now he'd be over. Where's God? Oh, too long. Can you identify with this? Of course you can. Marathon. It goes on and on and on, and we feel like it's too long. Then God said to Abraham, "As for Sarah, your wife, you shall not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall be your name, and I will bless her." Notice these words, "and I will bless her, and I also give you a son by her." I give you, Abraham. It's not you, it's me. I'm going to give her a son, not a daughter, a son. "Then I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be from her." Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, "Shall a child be born to a man who is 100 years old?" Oh man, why on earth you got to put this together, my friends? Who's making this so long? God. To be abusive? Absolutely not. Here's how it looks. It goes on and on and on. So when you think about marathon, It goes on and on and on. That's your picture. It's an arrow, and that sound goes on and on and on. All right. Pattern number 1, the prolonged marathon. No more responses. It's too long. Pattern number 2, back to the same couple. They finally have Isaac, their son. And his son is probably in his early mid-teens, most theologians feel, when this happened. And God says, he says to him, take now your son. Now listen to how God sets up Abraham. Take now your son, your only son, whom you love. Oh, man alive. Take that one. And go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I'll tell you. And then you remember, as Abraham's about ready to do this, the angel of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, Abraham, Abraham. So he said, here I am. And he said, don't lay your hand on the lad or do anything to him, for now I know, not you know, but I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. Was this a marathon? Absolutely not. This was something that's extremely painful. This was called a severe crisis. It was a crisis. It was an extremely painful or difficult situation. What's our normal response to a crisis? Kaboom! It's just too hard. It's too hard. Have you had a crisis? Where did you think God was? Look at this next passage. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, what? Come on, you got to put one and one together. By faith, what is this? What is a trial? It's a test of faith. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, by whom? By God. Session 1, God tests everyone. God's been testing you. Man, have you misinterpreted God? When he tested, offered up Isaac, and he who had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said, now this is a powerful verse, in Isaac your seed shall be called. Look at these words, concluding that God was able to raise him up from the dead, even from the dead. So Abraham's faith had grown so strong over all these tests, and we could have given you many more tests of Abraham. He had so many, that when he was going to kill his son in obedience to God, right, he concluded by faith that if he dies, God's going to resurrect him, because he promised through this son that the nation shall be blessed, and I'll have many, many children. Therefore, God has to raise him from the dead, and don't even doubt it. He's going to raise him from the dead. Look at that faith. Oh, my goodness. Was that there at the beginning? No, it wasn't. Oh, man. Come on now. Come on now. You got to put this together, my friends. Your faith, from God's point of view, in him, should become stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger until it's immovable. God is good. I trust him. This is for my good. I believe the cost is little compared to the benefit. I will praise his name. Nothing can make me go to the left or the right or retreat or back up or quit. That's when the heavens of glory shout your name. Yes, that's when Christ stands up as he did with Stephen being stoned. Christ stands up. He's proud of him. Look at my son. He never wavers with me. The marathon, on and on and on and on. The crisis, severe. It's making sense to you? Come on, we're just like all the famous people in the Bible, aren't we? Why? Why are we? Because God wants us all to be perfect, mature, lacking nothing. And he uses the trials and the tests of faith to do it to you and to me. And he used the same patterns that he used on Abraham and Isaac. And here it is. Look at that. Kaboom. Severe. Kaboom. Crisis, it's too hard. Number 3. This is when Moses is leading the people through the wilderness. So Moses said, listen to the anguish. Come on now. The anguish. I've said, I think 3 times now. Trials are grievous. They're painful. They're difficult. Especially the marathon. Especially the crisis. But it gets even more difficult. This is one with Moses that's more difficult than the first 2. And look how Moses is suffering at this point. Moses says to God, why? You hear that why word? That's a person who's about ready to fail a test. When you ask why, you're failing your test because you're not believing that God's purposes are good for you, and this is going to be worth it, and this is from his loving hand, and there's no reason to doubt him, and you're not going backwards, you're not quitting, you're not, no. You are strong in faith. And man, what you do with your life is dependent on the faith that grows in you. The mighty in faith do mighty exploits for God. And you become mighty through tests of faith. And those tests of faith are with trials, and they follow a pattern. They're either, a marathon, a crisis, or the rest of them are about ready to get to. Listen to the why. Why have you afflicted your servant? Question, did God afflict Moses? Absolutely he did. Yes. Tests of faith are from God. And why, there it is again, look at that, why have I not found favor in your sight? I've been serving you, I've been working for you. Well, why are you treating me this way? You see what we're thinking that way? We're thinking so backwards. So backwards. We're thinking this is a punishment. It's not a punishment. It's God's pathway to perfection. It's God's road to becoming like Christ. Is to go through these. Why have you done this to me? Why haven't I found favor in your sight that you've laid this burden of all these people on me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I beget them that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom as a guardian carries a nursing child to the land which you swore to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to all these people? For they weep all over me, saying, give us meat that we should eat. Here it is. Here it is. I am not able. I've decided I'm not able. That's my decision. I am not able. I am not able to bear all these people alone, as if God's not there. I thought these were God's people, Moses. They're not your people. You're taking responsibility on you. I've never asked you to do that. Because the burden, is too heavy? Really? It is? Come on, Moses. I'm right here. It's too heavy for me. If you treat me like this, please kill me here now. I want to die. Whoo. That's a person at the end of pattern 3. What's pattern number 3? The ordeal. The ordeal. Painful or difficult event or situation with long-lasting consequences. Whoa. It starts severe, hard, and then continues on and 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 on. That's what it is. It's both the marathon and the crisis blended into one. And the normal response is, this is just too much. This is just too much. Take a look at how this looks. There is my crisis and there is my marathon. Ordeals are difficult. I'm in an ordeal with my stroke. Was it a crisis? Oh my goodness. And it's gone on 10 months, and it's likely, unless God decides to do a miracle, which is up to him, but he's heard me and many of our family and friends knocking at the door. It'd be terrific if you decided to heal him, but if not, it's okay. We trust you. You're good. It's an ordeal. But have I ever been at this place where Moses was? Yes. Was Paul ever here? Yes. He says, I despaired even of life. Is it okay with you? Oh boy, hold on. Is it okay with you that God pushes you in your test of faith beyond where you think it's fair? It's not fair to go past here. It can't last this long. It can't be this hard. Don't you know I serve you? I love you. It can't keep going on. Can it? Because is not this the place in which new faith grows? It's always the leaves that happen at the end of the branch. New leaves and new twigs come. They come out here. It's a new growth. And it goes past what you think is going to happen. It's because of your expectations and your assumptions. I think by now this is going to end next week. It's going to end, I'm sure, by next Friday. This. God says, you do, huh? How about I'm not to the finish yet of giving you my gift? Wait till you find out what I'm going to give you when you get to the other side of glory because of this. The ordeal. This is just too much. Number 4. This surprised me. This is the pattern that the most people voted is where they were at the time I was teaching this to them. I had them vote. Is it marathon? Is it crisis? Is it ordeal? Is it this one or number 5? This got the most votes. I did not expect this. Take a look at this. This is the book of Job. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. This is Job. And a messenger came to Job and said, the oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them. And when the Sabaeans raided them and took them all away, indeed they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. That's the first thing that happened. That'd be enough to knock anybody over. While he was still speaking, you can't miss this. Another one of his servants also came and said, the fire of God fell from heaven and burned the sheep and the servants and consumed them. They're all dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was speaking, another came and said, the Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels, took them away. They killed the servants with the edge of the sword. I alone have escaped to tell you. And while he was still speaking, another also came and said, your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on young people, and they are all dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Now, there's much we could say about this, but I want you to see the conclusion of this for this session. We'll come back to Job later on in the series. Then Job, what's the best word? Desperately humbled at what Job did here. It just is, you talk about a person whose faith cannot be shaken. Job arose, tore his robe, shaved his head, everything he's owned, plus all of his kids, one after the other, after the other, after the other, and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground, and he worshiped. How could a man worship after this? Answer, look at his perspective. Then he said, naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Come on now. Think about what you're reading. Blessed be the name of the Lord. God has all the rights in the world to do whatever he wants, to give me great blessings or to take it away from me. In all this, Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. What is this called? This is called the cluster. One after the other, after the other, after the other. Multiple difficult or painful events or situations, often quickly occurring one after the other. The normal response is, it's too many. It's too many. Where's God? Where's God? If God was a God of love, he wouldn't have allowed this to happen to me. Where is God? I thought he loved me. I thought he cared for me. I thought he was there for me. Woo. What did I do wrong? Answer, you probably did nothing wrong. It's a huge gift. Take heed of the packaging your gift comes. It's not the packaging, it's the gift is inside the packaging. Here's what it looks like. Boom. The cluster. Very difficult. It's too many. And the last one. Is this helpful? You getting words? What's the one that goes on and on and on? Yeah, marathon. What's the crisis? What's the ordeal? What's the cluster? Got it? Marathon, crisis, ordeal, cluster. And this last one is an issue that God sees that you either failed the test in this area of faith, and he gives it to you again, and you fail it. He gives it to you again, over and over again. Or the other side of it is, you pass it, but your faith isn't strong enough, and he makes it harder the next time, and he makes it harder again, but it's the same principle of tests. Not because you failed, but because he wants you to become stronger. You remember how many times Saul tried to kill David? Over and over again? And this is David said to Saul, who was right there to kill him, why do you listen to the words of your men who say, indeed, David seeks your harm? Look, this day your eyes have seen that the Lord delivered you into my hand in the cave. Saul went into the cave to relieve himself. And while he was there, he took off his robe and didn't know that David and part of his army was in the same cave. Someone, David said, urged me to kill you because he's right there and helpless. But my eye spared you, and I said, I will not stretch out my hand against my Lord, for he is the Lord's anointed, and I don't have the authority to go above God in killing him. Moreover, my father, see, I've cut the corner of your robe in my hand. And he, can you imagine Saul in front of his army? Everybody realized, oh man, that's a part of Saul's, look at the bottom of his robe. Oh man, while he was in there, oh, you're kidding. David could have killed him and he didn't. What was that? That's another one of those tests that David was being given by God. It wasn't the first time or the second time. Corner of your robe and didn't kill you. Know and see that there is neither evil nor rebellion in my hand, and I have not sinned against you, yet you hunt my life to take it. Let the Lord judge between you and me, and let the Lord avenge me on you, but my hand shall not be against you. Look at this. Let the Lord judge between you and me, and let the Lord avenge me. I shall not be against you. What was that? That was a test of faith. Faith of David in God, even though man kept trying to kill him and he was innocent. So what is this called? This is called the repetitive loop. On and on and on. Retake of past tests, but in a different event or situation. What's the normal response? Too often. I've been here before. You got it? Here's what it looks like. Part 3. I want to conclude with a very helpful issue. Next to each one of these 5 patterns, I gave you 2 words. Too long, too hard, too much, too many. What's the word too mean? T-O-O. It's too long. It should have ended back here. Question I want to ask you about this. where along the line do we decide to? If we have this, I have to endure, right? We don't sit down and say to ourselves, man, I'm in a trial, I'm in a test of faith, and I think it's going to be over in 3 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 days, and 14 hours. We don't do that. But somewhere along the line, what do we end up saying? It's too long. Well, who put the line there? This, God doesn't send us an email or a text or a WhatsApp and says, by the way, next week on Thursday afternoon, 2:12, I'm going to begin your test, and it's going to last for 14 days. And on the 14th day at 9:23, somebody's going to come to your house, and it's going to end. So hang in there. What will you do? You'll go to that day. Why? You have your expectations set. What does God do? He doesn't tell you when the test is coming, how long it's going to be, which of the patterns is it. He doesn't tell you anything. Well, then how do we get to this point? It's too long or too hard or too much or too many. How do we get to that point? Because somewhere, is this making sense to you? Somewhere, we have this this dotted line right here. It should end by here. But we don't even know that line is there, do we? Because we've not thought about it. But here's what happens. We have a subconscious ending point. And when this thing continues to go past that point, that's where it goes to too hard, too long, too much. God, you put too much on me. As if God made a mistake. And this issue then is where we begin the fall of the failure. And eventually, if it goes on enough past this place, what do we begin doing about God? How do we feel about God? Because he went too much this time. It was too hard. He wasn't fair. He wasn't loving. He wasn't good. Why should I serve God if he's going to treat me this way? Whoa! That goes all back to here. Watch this. Watch this. What would happen if you said, no, I'm not going to have any expectations. I don't know when this is going to be. It's okay with me as long as it lasts, as hard as it lasts, as complex as it lasts. It's fine with me. I know it has an end, and the end is for my good, and I will trust you, and I won't have any expectations. Therefore, are you going to get to the two part? You're not. What is that called? Dependence, submission. It's okay. I don't have to know. I don't know. It's okay with me not to know. I know you. I know you. I know your ways. And you are generous and kind to me, even if you wrap it in a trial. So I've put a little bit of a chart for you as we wrap this up. The danger of expectations, our expectations, and our assumptions. It's going to end by here. Is this helpful to you? This really is meant to be part of the foundation of understanding of how this takes place. This is our expectations. This is reality down this blue line, is the reality that we're in. And we've been expecting this to come through. We've expecting reality to get better, improve. It's going to end. And the further time goes on, and our expectations stay here, and this line of reality doesn't get better, and our expectations aren't met, guess what we begin to feel? More and more serious words. For instance, number one, when this isn't that far apart, level number one is called disappointment. Do you know what the definition of disappointment is? Listen carefully. It's defined in the dictionary as to fail to live up to expectations. You ever been to a restaurant, and at the way out, you say to your friend you're out to dinner with, well, that was disappointing. What did you mean? I expected it to taste better than it did. You can't be disappointed unless you have an expectation. Wow. But what happens if time goes on further and further and the expectations don't change and reality doesn't change? You get a much more challenging word. You get discouragement. Discouragement. What's discouragement? Take a look at this. Take the word, the letters D-I-S out of here, courage. D-I-S means a lack of or absence of. I have an absence of courage. Courage about what? That my life's going to get better. That's discouragement. What's all that based on? Your line of expectation. Who told you to set that? If it's based upon a promise of God, have that expectation because God keeps his promise. Making sense? Well, now it becomes a little bit more challenging. Because if time goes on, look at level 3. Disillusionment. Oh, this is a lot more serious. Look, what's the word in the middle of disillusionment? Take out the D-I-S and the mint. It's illusion. What's an illusion? It's a false sense of reality. If you have an illusion, you have a false sense of reality. You're not living in real world. When you're disillusionment, it means, watch this, I no longer have an illusion. What was my illusion over here? My illusion was reality's going to get better, and it didn't. And guess what? God stopped it from getting better. And he doesn't appreciate you drawing your line in the sand, telling him by now, this should be over. Really? When a person becomes disillusioned, that's the time for this line to disappear. Lord, I submit to you. For as long, as hard, and complex as you want, I trust you, and when it is complete, it will end. Next one is the word depression. Depression, that's when we get angry, can get bitter toward God. Level number 5, despair. What's despair? The loss of all hope. That's what definition of despair is. What are you despairing? I'm despairing that my life will ever get what I want it to be. Wait. It's not what I want it to be. It's what God wants you to go through. Level 6, desperation. And number 7, defeat. So much of this, if you can just put this together, is our expectations. We don't really realize this, but here's what we do. If this is the Lord, we go above the Lord. You'll be done by this time. It won't get any harder than this, because if it does, it's not fair. And if you were loving, you wouldn't do this to me. Do you realize this? It's arrogant. God doesn't want us having expectations on him that's not based upon what the Bible says or gives him freedom to live sovereignly with us. All right, let's wrap it up. The 5 patterns for the test of faith. Let's go through this in your workbook. I want you to know these 5 words now. Here we go. Number 1, the marathon. Number 2, the crisis. Number 3, the ordeal. Number 4, the cluster. And number 5, the loop. Now, how do you feel about this? This has been kind of some challenging topics to think about. But I want you to ponder this thought as we wrap up. The Lord selects the optimal pattern for your test. If there was a better pattern for him to achieve his perfect purpose for you, he would have selected it. So take a look at these principles. Number 1, the Lord is omniscient, all-knowing, and always selects the best test pattern for your maximum present and eternal benefit. Point number 2, the Lord is omnipotent, all-powerful, and always arranges every part of your test with the highest efficiency and effectiveness. And number 3, the Lord is omnipresent and always remains with you during every test with his help and his comfort. Well, that wraps up the patterns of tests of faith. In our next session, we're going to deal with the stages in test failure as we wrap up this particular session in the testing of your faith. But let me just go back to what we're talking about here as we wrap up this session. That is, do you have the 5 patterns in your mind? I hope you do. Hope you can just marathon, crisis, ordeal, cluster, loop, cluster, ordeal, crisis, marathon, crisis. Do you have it? You need to know this. And I want you to be thinking, are you in one of these right now? And how can you become aware of the stages of a test failure? How do you know if you're getting close to a failure and that the benefit that God wants to give to you may not be yours because you're going to end it too soon? Well, that's what we're going to deal with next week. So on behalf of the team here at Teach Every Nation, we hope and bless you that this will be a great help to you as you handle the tests of faith that God sends your way for your benefit.
Oh, we need a quick Peanuts cartoon. One that I think I've shared with you before, but I find it really funny. 2 of the little characters are sitting with their juice, and the little boy says, I think my grandma would be more understanding if she had a few children of her own. Yes. Okay, you got this down, right? These 5 words. Now we've got to learn 5 more words, okay? It seems that his pattern is 5 every week. So there's 5 things. Now you're up to 10 things you've got to remember. On page 15 are the questions that are suggested for discussion. You know the review, the sketch out, the main chart of the session. You've got that in your mind. You know about the arrows. So let's look at the question 2 about reflecting. Think back over your life and share with one another a difficult test of faith you experienced, and which pattern was it? How did you feel during the process? The one that I have shared with you all to get you started in thinking is when my sister died. It was a crisis. It happened, bang. And how I felt that it was unfair, and there was a young woman that just died suddenly. What about the rest of you? Have you had different patterns that you can relate to? Different tests of faith that you can sort of think about this? Yeah.
My husband and I have gone through many unemployment times where he's had a job and he was let go. And we've made comments like, didn't we learn that lesson before?
So it's a loop. Yeah.
And it's like, what is God doing? Why does this keep happening to us? And it's been extremely difficult when you're going through it.
Yeah.
Because you self-examine yourself. What did I do that you're allowing this to happen? What was my sin was so bad that you were putting this pressure on us to be going through this?
When
So
really
you
he's wanting to make you stronger in your faith.
Right, and now when you think about it, and you see young people going through those kinds of things, people are looking for gainful employment, and you think how hard it is for them to pick themselves up to do something. But it's very hard to go through it.
Yes.
But it gives you different perspective later on to
Yep.
help other people.
To help others, yeah. Anybody else have anything that they could share? Yeah.
My husband was a in his mother's family was a degenerative neurological disease. And it kind of starts with their hearing loss and then some loss in their feet and stuff. But, and it started starts usually in their late 40s or 50s. And so I went through that with him for 6 or 7 years until he passed away at age 50.
So that'd be a marathon. Yeah.
Daily.
Yeah,
And
a daily
just
marathon.
recently, I was dating a gentleman for about 6 years, and he passed away a year ago, 2 days after Valentine's. But he had mitral valve that they couldn't fix. So I went through him with that, and not only that, but he fell and cut his eye, and then at 4 o'clock in the morning, then he broke his left hip, and then when he got over that, we were at the beach, and he fell, and he sprained his right groin.
So that sounds like a cluster. Yeah, one thing after another.
And so now I'm asking for prayers for Tommy, which is another friend that just for a long time to need somebody.
Anybody else? Yeah.
My husband used to have a bumper sticker that we found way back, and it said, if you don't change direction, you're gonna end up where you're going. And, we just picked it up because we thought it was just a cool thing, but we talked about being in that loop, or, I've been in it, he's been in it, we all have, it seems, but sometimes you have to really sit down and evaluate what am I doing? Why do I keep ending up in this same place? It's just, sometimes you just need to step out and do a little different.
Well, don't you think God, I don't know.
Because you haven't learned it.
Well, my mother was in that situation. She was a nurse, and people kept always coming to her and say, can you help me do this? Can you give me shots? Can you take care of me for the weekend or something? And it seems like somebody was always asking her for help. And I mean, she could have said no. I mean, do people pick us out and say, you can do this, would you help me? Is it something it's a conscious thing that we become involved in? Like, you keep rolling and marathon. I mean, people pick you out. Does God send these people? That you are always a caregiver of some sort? Yeah, I mean, that's a situation. I mean, here you are, you're being fit, and God's placing these people in your care.
Yeah.
That's a trial?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a gift, it's
And
a
it's-
special gift that He gives you, and not be your test, but think of maybe the gift that it's given to somebody else.
Because you're giving so much to others in return.
Yeah, Arla.
He hasn't yet addressed something that is troubling me about this whole test of faith. I think we tend to blame God for everything. Okay, so look at the man who spends his life sitting on the couch and drinking beer and often driving drunk, and then he's in a terrible accident and he's paralyzed. God sent that? I want to say sometimes I've caused my own problem. I was stupid.
Yeah.
I was speeding when
Yeah.
I wrecked the car.
Yeah.
So, and I'm looking at 2 grandchildren who are totally unmotivated at this point and sitting around, and I kind of want to shake them instead of saying, oh, poor thing, you're going through a test of faith, we'll all continue to support you. And I wish he would deal with that. because don't we have the tendency to blame God for everything?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, God, how did I contribute this? How did this other person? Sometimes we reap what we sow. He hasn't dealt with that at all.
Don't you think that goes back to that choice that he gives us? You know, God gives us the choice to accept him or not to accept him. And the same thing with, am I going to sit here and eat all this good sugar stuff and gain 10 pounds? And, you know, that's my fault. You know, I'm given a choice. And
Yeah.
what do I do with that choice?
I think you'll find as we go through.
Okay, will he address that so that we take some
Yeah.
personal responsibility
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
instead of blaming God?
Yeah.
We've read ahead.
Oh, thank you, thank you,
But we didn't go in a circle like that.
thank you.
But you know, I remember Grandma, Grandma would be much more understanding if she had a few children of her own.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have
Not
all
kids.
asked why.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a no-no, according to what he was saying, that's a no.
No, he says that we have grievous things occur to us and we do ask why, but we've got to turn it around and start to learn that the benefit outweighs the cost.
Maybe when we ask why, briefly, we cope with how did I contribute to this? And then we move to what now? What now, God? When he was talking about being pushed too long, God's, we think it's going to end and it's harder and harder. The analogy came to my mind, how many of you have ever been through physical therapy and it hurt? Okay, and you were saying, I can't do this, it's too long, too much, too hard.
Yeah.
You know, everybody's different. Something that might be too long and too hard for you might not be for that other. You know, some people that are so stoic or they're so whatever. And you know, there's some people that sometimes those people are just a testimony. I'm not
Yeah, Rita?
The one thing when the video was kind of a glitching there, where he's talking about on number 3, and it stuck with me when I watched this portion earlier. It's talking about the extended ordeal and how it was too difficult, but too long thing. And where it kind of broke up, it's that the tests of faith are from God. We think it's punishment, but it's God's pathway to perfection.
Yeah.
And that, I just.
Yeah, it was-
I hate that it broke up right there, because that's just
Yeah.
wrapping my head around that it's God's, these tests are God's pathway to perfection for us.
Yes. Thank you,
Let,
Rita.
let that soak in and
Yeah.
think on that.
Thank you, Rita.
And he pushes-
Where does that fit in? What page?
that was number 3 on the ordeal.
Okay.
And that was when he was talking about when he pushes us in our test of faith beyond what we think is fair. That was in that same little segment he was talking about. So we're on the pathway to perfection.
It gave me a lot of comfort that Abraham and Moses didn't necessarily come out with the right answer the first time.
Yeah. Well, what are the 5 again now? You know these? Cluster. Think about it this week.
MC.
You know, each day when you think, why did this happen? Well, maybe put it into a category and think about it. And, as you know, he said, we're here, we're talking about tests of faith, and we'll be moving through this chart. And this is why he talks about the vocabulary being so important, to understand what it is we're talking about. Next week, Margie will take us into
Failure.
next
Of course.
number, failure. No, I wasn't going to say that.
they're.
So, there's a lesson.
Why would you say that about yourself? Come on now.
Well, the following week is success.
Yeah, I get to do
So you get failure and success. Does anybody have anything else that they want to share? Yeah.
I do have one thing. There is a piece of paper or several pieces of paper on every table. Those who are members of the church know Nanette Bennett. Those who do not may have been a part of the sale that we had at Christmas time. She's just a wonderful giving woman who does a great deal of pottery and all the profits or all the money that she collects go to Children's Hope Alliance. My husband works with that a lot, and I've asked Nanette many times, what can we do to help right now with the health crisis your parents are going through? And the thing that she wants more than anything, her mother loves to get cards. So I have given everybody her address and stuff. Be sure you put on it that you're Nanette's friend. And there is a card going around somewhere here today for all of us to sign that I'm going to put in the mail this week. Miss Betty isn't doing real well, but it brightens her day when she gets mail. So I would love for us to just bury her under a bucket of cards.
And my suggestion is, don't all mail them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right, she loves, so stagger them out just a little bit.
Yeah.
And I have one more thing. It's not too late to sign up for Lunch Bunch, I don't think, is it?
No.
Okay, and it's going to be absolutely delightful. It's a fun program with some spiritual truth, and it is a dramatic presentation coming. And I think if you miss it, you're going to miss what people are talking about. So come Friday, 11:45.
And I was talking to our speaker yesterday, and she would love to have questions and answer time period. She says, I said, maybe give yourself a couple minutes in case somebody might ask you questions. She says, I would love for people to talk and ask me questions.
Actually, she has written a whole book, and it normally sells for $10, but it is delightful, as she is. It's just little stories of how God has given her nudges through her life. And we will be selling it for $5 minimum, and anything extra you can give will go into our mission fund to give away.
And she was a singer.
She's an actress and a singer. Yeah.
What I thought was
She's our cleaning
interesting, I did some big research on Abigail, the character that she's going to portray in it, to have a background, and it was really, really interesting to
Good point.
look that up.
Well, anybody that needs to sign up.
So
check
see
with
Carolyn before we go today.
Yes, I'll be glad to take the reservation. But real quickly, I'd like to say, looking at the list and the things, I went through a marathon, I guess it was, starting in about, it lasted 6 years. It was with a friend of mine, and Arliss, I don't know if you remember or not, but my friend and I, she had called me, and I was trying to get ready to go to a wedding thing, and it was a dinner, and I had to be on time, and I love her. We've known each other since we were in like junior high school. But anyway, that particular day, I said, I've got to go, and I hung up. But then I called her back, and I said, I'm sorry. I've been trying to tell her I had to go. But I hung up, and I called her back, and I apologized. She didn't speak to me for 6 years.
Oh, my God.
For 6 years. That was in like 2006, I believe. And I sent her birthday cards, I sent her Mother's Day cards, and I just prayed about it. I didn't try to, I reached out to her. So finally I gave up, and I just put it in God's hand. And then in 2012, in May, before Nelson got so sick in June, one day I was in the kitchen and my phone rang, and I answered the phone, and she said, Carolyn, this is, and I said, well, how in the world are you? I'm so glad you're. She says, I can't believe you'll talk to me. And I says, why would you say that? I said, I've missed you, But it just,
that was all in God's timing,
Yeah,
you know?
that's a miracle.
And I don't think she really knows why she did that, you know? But I think her son finally made her see, you know, that, why was that, you know? But, you know, so we shouldn't give up because,
No.
you know.
No.
But anyway, I just wanted to share
Thank
that,
you.
so.
Thank you for doing
We're still very good friends now.
Good.
You know.
But you'll never tell her you can't talk.
No, I'll never tell her that again, but I mean, you have to know her, and when you're on the phone with her, it was like yesterday, I was on the phone with her, and my phone kept beeping, my doorbell rang. I finally got off the phone so I could go to the door, and then somebody else, and it was a comedy of errors, yes, it was a miracle. But I love her to death, and, you know, we've been friends and for a long time, and that was a hard time for me. And I thought, that was before my mom passed, and my mom said, you know, you just have to love her, and, you know, and it worked out, so.
Well, let me close us in prayer, and we all can think about this today. Father, we give you thanks for this time that we've had together with technical difficulties, but we still got the message, and we thank you for that. Be with us as we have lots of tests during the week, and help remind us that they are your gifts to us, so that we may be transformed into being perfected and receive the glory at the end. In your Son's holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen.